Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. So we see a lot of people are joining. Let's wait for another 5 minutes and begin the session. Hope everybody is safe and sound and of course at home. So at 4:05, let's begin the session. Hello, everyone. Yes, so it's 4:05. Let's begin the session. So, as most of you are aware, today we would be discussing about shift management in Keka, right? So, I am Pranita. I am a product specialist here. So, I would be walking you through all the steps of how to create a shift. What is it? What is a shift board? What is a scheduler? How does shift rotation work in Keka? All of these settings. And we also have Aarti in the background who would be helping you with any of your queries in the chat box here. So if you have any queries in between the session, you can just drop in a line there and we'll try to answer it at the earliest. Now, I'll quickly begin the session. So yes, let's get started. So before I begin, yes, what is a shift? So as we all know, shift is nothing but a work schedule allotted to an employee, right? So it could be either fixed number of hours or basically depending on our business requirement. And to ensure that we are making maximum use of the business hours and the resources we have, we allot different timings to the employees we have, right? So I'll share my screen. Just confirm once you are able to view my screen. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen now? Hope you're all able to view the Keka dashboard. Awesome. Thank you for confirming. Perfect, perfect. And then in that case, let's get started. So I request you all to close your chat window so that you can see the screen. The screen would get a little bigger so you can see it clearly. In any case, I have zoomed it a little, so I hope it's clear now, right? Perfect, perfect. Yes. So this is the Keka dashboard, and to add a shift, we will have to go to time attend. The path to go there is time attend, and in time attend we have shift, weekly off, and holidays. Right. So this is how the dashboard, the module looks like. So as I said, we have the option to add fixed shift and flexible shift. Fixed shift is nothing but if you want to assign a particular timings, between which employee can, log in, log out, and finish their work. So that would be a fixed shift. So you can have a morning shift, a second shift, a general shift, or a night shift, depending on your requirement. Now, in cases you have where you're fine with employee working at any time, at any point at any point in time, and but must cover certain number of hours, and then you can go with a flexible shift. So to add a shift, I have gone to shifts and weekly offs, and under shift we have an option called add shift. Just click on add shift and you can give it a name. So I will call it webinar shift and give a shift code. And you can so basically this description is for who all are applicable, who all are assigned this shift. So maybe you have a certain set of employees working in the morning shift, so you can put the description accordingly. Now, so if it's a fixed shift, that is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., depending on your requirement, then you can define your start and shift start and end time here. Now, in case, so here we have all the days starting from Monday all the way to Sunday. Sometimes we tend to have, if in case you have where you have different timings on different days. For example, on a Saturday, if it is only half a day on a Saturday, for example, you have only 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on a Saturday, in that case, all you have to do is just check this option, different for different days of the week. So this option will typically allow us to choose our shift timings on different days of the week. But if that's not the case, you can just uncheck this option and same shift timings will be applied for every single day. Now, so 9 to 6 are the timings allotted. Now I want to change it to 10 to 7 o'clock. So 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. are my shift timings. Okay. Now, this will become 9 hours. But in this 9 hours, I want to include a break of 60 minutes. In that case, we have something called a break duration. So all we have to do is, if it is a 60-minute break, then give it a 60 minutes. If it is same during all the days, then same. If you have different break, if you say if you want to uh, have more break on Friday, then you can just add like 75 minutes, or depending on your requirement, this could be done. Otherwise, it's same for all the days. So this is how we allot shift timings and break duration. I hope this was clear. Now we have defined timings saying 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. are your shift timings. But in cases, so let's just save this. Now, but I have certain set of developers that work in flexible shift. So they don't have any particular timings. In that case, I can just select the option, employees in the shift do not have specific work timings. So we no more have to define the start and end time of the shift. It will automatically disappear. Now, okay, this doesn't mean that I will still allow the employees to come and we have still given the leverage of coming at whatever time and finishing the work and going. But if you have a policy, if they are expected, if the employee is expected to complete certain number of hours, right? In that case, you can just define how many hours are they expected to complete. If it is 9 hours, for example, if I log in at 12 p.m. in the afternoon, then I am expected to complete 9 hours. So I have to clock out at 9 o'clock. It is after 9 o'clock. So to finish my 9 hours of shift. So this is gross hours. In this, if you want to include a break period of 60 minutes, then their effective hours typically become 8 hours. So the difference between gross hours and effective hours is the break duration. So gross hour is the total number of hours including the break duration. So your gross hours is that includes 1 hour of break time. Again, the settings are the same. If you want, if it is same across all days, it's same. Otherwise, it's different. I hope it was clear so far. Yeah. So this is how we add shifts in Keka. So once again, I'll just go through that. Time attend, shift and holidays, shift weekly off and holiday, shift and weekly off. In shifts, all we have to do is just click add a shift and add as per our requirement. Now, so if you want to modify already existing shift, right, you have to switch to shift track version. For example, I have created something called webinar flexible and webinar shift, right? If I want to modify anything, then I have to come here and then update and then make changes if required. So if you, I believe all of you already have existing shifts, right? In case you want to make any changes, you have to toggle to track shift versions, view, you can view like what are the changes, recent changes made and updated by whom, and then you can just update it. So that's how we create shifts. Okay, very well, we have created the shift. How do we assign the shift to somebody, right? So to assign a specific shift, we have to switch to assignments. It can, of course, be done from employee's profile as well. But from here, in shift assignments, we have something called shift and weekly off assignments. So from this, I can basically choose the employees. For example, I have Javed, I have Deepak, I have Priyanka. So I have just selected these 3 employees. I just click on update shift. You can give a start date. And if there's no end date to the shift, you can just choose shift does not have any end date. And I want to give them webinar shift that was just created. Now I want to assign 2 more shift. I want to assign flexible shift to 2 more people. Similar, if it has an end date, you can just give an end date. So between these dates, these employees have flexible shift. So this is how we assign. So shift, weekly off, and holidays, assignments. Clear? Got it. Now, so that's about shifts in, that's about how to add a shift. Now, how to add a weekly off, right? The process is pretty similar. So all we have to do is switch to weekly off, click on add weekly off, and select. So if you have different set of employees having different weekly offs, say for some people it's only a Saturday, for some people it's Saturday and Sunday. So accordingly, you can just select what is it? Maybe you have a Saturday weekly off, but in Saturday, is it all Saturday, or is it only first Saturday and third Saturday? Is it a half day or a full day? All of that can be defined here and saved. This is how we can create a weekly off. We can create multiple weekly offs and multiple shifts. Okay. Now let's understand shift and weekly off rules. Now, if you have a policy where employees by themselves can request to work in a particular shift or can take an off on a particular day, then you can create something, you can create rules such that they can do it. For example, I'll just create webinar shifts. Save and continue. Now, choose option that applies under the setting. Shift assignment and shift change can be requested by employees. So this is completely optional because generally we tend to give it, but if you want to configure this, just be sure, but just be aware that it is available in Keka. So shift assignment. So if employees can by themselves request for, to work in a particular shift. So here you can basically select what shifts they can reflect, apply for. I want to select both the shifts I have given, webinar flexible and webinar shift. So can an employee is allowed to raise how many days of this request in a week or month? And an employee is allowed to raise the shift request how many times in a month? So say if I put 5 times in a month, so this basically means an employee that is assigned this rule can go and request to work in any particular selected shift here 5 times in a month. So we are basically putting a restriction here. Now, again, this is, can employee raise a past dated shift request? Past dated shift request is when for something that has already that's already done in the past. Uh, for yesterday or the day before or sometime last week. So we can put a restriction. When can they, they can apply for past dated shift request, but not beyond how many days. So if they cannot go beyond current month and not after the 20, on or before the 28th of the current month, if there was any past shift request that was not done, that was not raised by the employee, they have to go and raise it. Now, restrict past dated shift to how many calendar days back? So it's the 3rd of June. Can I go back to the 3rd of May and raise a request? No, right? So typically it again comes down to your requirement. So if you allow that, then you can put it. Otherwise, you can restrict employees to raise from X number of calendar days back. Got it? Now, restrict employees from raising. Okay, this is a very, very good setting. So restrict employees from raising shift request on. So if you want them to raise a request only on a particular day, for example, if you don't want them to raise for a request on a holiday, then you can put it. If you don't want them to raise on any specific day, then you can just select on holidays and weekly offs. Employees are not allowed to raise a shift request. Now, applying for shift request requires how many days prior notice? The moment I put 0 here, so see, minimum number of days allowed should be 1. So at least one calendar day notice is minimum required for an employee to raise a shift request. And it contains how many days? At least 0 working days or 1 working day. That's up to us. So if we put here, if I want a shift request for tomorrow, I can raise it today. But if you want to have a good buffer time, you can give it accordingly. Now, does the shift request require approval? So if I put 0 times in a week or a month, then every single shift request will go for an approval. If I put 5, the first 5 will not go for an approval. So from the sixth one, it will go for an approval. But I want every request so that all of us are aware as to when is the resource, working. So if it exceeds 0 times in a week, then who should it go to? Should it go to the reporting manager, or should it be a specific employee, or who is it? We can just define it here. Okay. Now that is how we can we can define shift rules. Similarly, same thing applies for a weekly off as well. Can employee ask for a specific weekly off? And the settings are same as what we have seen above. Okay, so I'll just mark this complete. So we have created shift and weekly off rule called webinar shift rules. Okay, now assignments. So similarly, how we have assigned a specific shift, right? Similarly, we can just select employee and update their weekly off. Now, let's get to the a little more interesting part of today, that is scheduler. So some of you might not be seeing scheduler in your Keka portal, because scheduler is an add-on. It's an add-on feature. So let's understand how scheduler works and how it can be used in our while to manage shifts. So under scheduler, we have shift board and shift rotation. Okay. So shift board is nothing but in a dynamic work environment, right, where shifts keep changing. If you have a set of employees whose shifts keep constantly changing, we tend to create a roster, right? For example, from this day to this day, these set of these 10 employees or somebody working in testing, depending on the business requirement, all the developing team and the testing team will be working in a particular shift. So all of that can be defined under a shift board. So basically what we can create in a shift board is that we can group a set of employees and create a shift roster for them. Let's try to create one from scratch and understand how it works. So I will create one called webinar board now. So we have board manager can assign only predefined shift. Board manager can assign only predefined week off. So board manager is somebody who is entitled to make changes to this shift board. But if there is no board manager assigned, by default, the HR executive, global admin, and the HR manager can come and make changes at any time. That's by default. But besides these three people, if you have any specific set of employees whom you want to manage this, then you can just enter their name here. So they become the board managers. Now, we have two interesting settings here. One says board managers can assign only predefined shifts. So the moment we select this, right, we can choose as to, for example, as I said, let's consider the same example. I have developers team, I have testing team, and I want them to be allotted only flexible shift, or I want them to work definitely between 10 to 7 o'clock that I have defined earlier. So in that case, we will only these shift will become a part of the shift board. Now, same with weekly offs as well. If is it a Saturday, Sunday weekly off, or what is it? Okay. Now, if you do not have any such restriction as to only particular shift should be considered, and then you can just simply uncheck these options. Okay. Now, save. So we have created webinar board, shift board. Now, what is the next step? So if you want to update or delete, now to assign. How do we assign employees under the shift board? So we have something called view shift board, right? We have to click on view shift board. So for now, no employees added here yet. So just click on add employees. So here we have the list of all employees available in this system. But as I said, it will be more, there's an exhaustive list we find here, but we can define it even better if you want to if you want to filter by the department wise, then you can do that. For now, I'll just assign it to 4 people. These five people, we can just select how many ever we want and then add employees. And voila. So this is basically this is for our understanding. So this week, right? This week has started on a Monday. That is the 31st of May. So this is how the roster looks like for all the selected employees. Now, if you want to add more employees, you can add. So this is how the next week will look like. And these are their weekly offs. Okay, and this is the past week and this is the current week. Now, if you want to import shifts and weekly offs for these set of employees, so we have this option, right? Import shifts and weekly offs. So we just have to select this. So it's an Excel template. This Excel template will have the data, basically the employee number and all the dates. So here we can select what shift they belong to and then assign it accordingly and simply come back and import it here. So this is how we create a shift board and shift roster. I hope this was clear. Guys, am I audible? I hope it was clear, the shift board. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for confirming. Yeah. So this is how it is. Now we have created a shift board. So as I said, okay, we have grouped a set of employees and they are working in a shift based on the roster we have created. In say somebody, you work on a rotational shift. So we understand what a rotational shift is, right? Say you have a frequency, for example, for every 2 weeks of time or for every 3 weeks or every month, for every 4 weeks of time, employees shift gets changed. If I was in the morning shift this week and next week, if I should work in the afternoon shift or night shift, depending on the available shifts in the system, that is possible through something called shift rotation. So how do we go there? We can find it under scheduler only. So this is shift board. We have to switch to shift rotation. So currently there's no pattern defined here. So we'll just click on add shift rotation and we can call it here. Now, the first question system is asking us is that how many shifts are rotating in the shift rotation? Okay, so if is it 2 shifts or 3 shifts, or we can have a maximum of up to 4 and a minimum of 2. So if I go with 3 shifts, this is how it will look like. So we are basically toggling employees in between these 3 shifts. Okay. Now name and you can name your shift. Is it like morning shift, afternoon shift, and night shift? You can also give you know icons. Yeah. So we have 3 shifts selected here. Now shift in weekly off and shift timing. So in the morning shift, what is the policy people should follow? So I am selecting webinar shift. That is 10 to 7 o'clock. That was selected, and I will select Saturday and Sunday. Okay, see 10 to 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So morning shift people work in 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now afternoon shift. Afternoon shift, I will just select something called a CS day available in the system, Saturday and Sunday. But here the break duration is 1 hour. Here the break duration is 30 minutes. Okay. Similarly with the night shift. Night shift, because it's just for test purposes, I'll just select a flexible shift and weekly off. This is how. So there are no timings for our flexible shift, right? It's just 9 hours. They can come in anytime, go in anytime, and they can take 1 hour break in the entire shift duration. So there are 3 shifts, and morning shift, afternoon, and night. So these are the shifts and timings allotted. Now, what is a pattern? How are we defining the schedule of it? Okay. For how many weeks does each shift long? Uh, so this typically means if I put 1 week, in my second week, my shift will be changed. Got it? So if I go for 1 week, I'll just keep changing the number here. Try to observe the pattern you find here. For example, we have created 3, right? So basically, we are dividing employees in 3 different teams. So if I put 1 for week 1, team 1 will be in morning shift, team 2 this, and team 3 in night shift. For week 2, it'll shift 1 to the right. So team 1 will work in the afternoon, team 2 in night, and team 3 in the morning. Similarly, it again gets rotated. In the third week, when it comes to third week, team 1 will go to the night shift, team 2 will go to the morning, and team 3 in afternoon shift. Now I will change the frequency to 2 weeks, which means in after 2 weeks from the third week, shift rotation should change. So in the first 2 weeks, this is how it will look like. In the third and fourth week, this is how it is. Fifth and sixth week, this is how it will be. All right. Now, if I want this to be a month-long thing, one entire month thing, this is how it will be. So what we are trying to do here is that we are trying to define a frequency, or we are telling the system to modify, to automatically reassign the shift after the frequency ends. I hope it was clear. Yeah. Now, so this is how it is. Now we also have the option to modify. So we do not want them to be called team 1, 2, or 3, right? So I will call the first team as developers, and my second team is the testing team. My third team, I want it to be for my designers. Got it? So I have, yeah. And select shift cycle start date. So this start date, we cannot select a future date. It either can be a past date or till today. Okay, so I want to give it from the 31st of May because it's a Monday. Okay, so this is how it will look like. So just we'll try to understand. So the frequency we gave here is 2 weeks. So from till the 13th of June. So all the developers will be in morning shift. Testers will work in the afternoon, designers in the night. And the second time, in from June 14th till 27th, this is how it will look like. Now we have successfully created a shift rotation pattern as well. I'll just save this. Okay. So, okay, very well, we have created, but we have not assigned this to anybody yet. So we have to switch to employees and click on manage employee allocation. Okay. So from manage employee allocation, we have to allot, this rotation to people. Now, select employees, select option from where employees should be picked. So if you want employees within this, or pick employees who are not assigned any shift rotation. Okay. Then I'll put the effective date as the 31st of June, at 31st of May. And I will pick employees who did not have any shift rotation. Now I can here also. So here also I can filter by the department or location, and then select the employees. So I will select peer test, RM test, employee test. And I want these people to be moved to, okay, so this could be slightly, just observe this a little more carefully, because what we are trying to do here is that we are trying to group employees in the different teams we have created. while creating the shift rotation. So we have created 3 shifts, right? And we have 3 set of people. One is the developers, testing team, and the designers. So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to group these employees and put them under each team. So I have selected 3 employees here. Once I scroll down, I have an option to switch. I can switch. I can put them in any team I want, and I can move these 3 employees. So it's done now. Now I will switch to testing. Now I will put 3 more employees. I will put them in testing. Okay, and now I can select again 3 more employees. As we see, the number here is also reducing. Okay, now I want these 3 designers to be moved here. I hope it was clear. If you want me to walk you through that again, I will do that. Am I audible? It is clear. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay, so this is how we assign, we group employees and assign them in different teams. So we have 3 developers, 3 people in development team, 3 people in testing, and 3 people are our designers. Now we have created our team and we are done. Yeah. So this is how it look like. So here the dashboard will give you an overview as to who is working in what shift in this particular week. Yeah, and these are the, if we toggle to shifts and weekly off, right? What are the weekly off assigned? So these settings are typically what was given while we created the rotation policy, the rotation plan. Okay, so we can see what shift, what are the break timings? Is it a flexible shift or what is it? I hope it was clear. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah. Just give me a minute, guys. Let's also cover one more topic, that is nothing but shift allowance. And I also saw somebody ask a question on the shift allowance, right? What is shift allowance, and what is it? What is shift allowance policy, and how are employees paid when they work in a specific shift? So to create shift allowance policy, we have to go to shift allowance. So here we have something called a shift allowance code and create a shift allowance policy. First, let's create a shift allowance code. So I'll just try to add a code here. For example, I will create night shift allowance. So I have created night shift allowance here, and the pay code is NSA. And if you have a fixed amount that is to be paid to the employees working in this particular, allotted this particular shift, then very well you can enter it. So if it's say 700 rupees or 750 or 1000 rupees, then give it. Sometimes we also see that, employees are paid twice their earning or twice their day's payment or anything. In that case, if you see, we have something called available components here, right? So in available components, you can just select. So these are the components available in your system. So we can just select the component What is it? Is it 40% of the gross, or is it gross divided by, you know, 12 into 31? That is by month. And is it per day salary, or what is it? So this is again based on your requirement. So you can just, as I said, it could be a fixed amount like this, not 5,000. It could be a fixed amount like this, or it can uh, be a formula as well. Okay. So once this is done, all we have to do is just click on add. So we have created something called night shift allowance. Okay, night shift allowance is created. Now we have to create a shift allowance policy. So to add shift allowance policy, general, okay, webinar. Shifts to be configured for all purpose of shift allowance configuration. For example, yeah. So what here we are trying to do is that we have created a code, right? Something called a night shift allowance. So sometimes not just night shift, maybe you have multiple shifts, people working in different shifts, and you have different codes and different pay policies for each shift. Then you can have multiple codes. That's not a problem. We can allot it accordingly when we are trying to create a shift allowance policy. Okay. So here we have a question. Here we have an option. I would like to configure shift allowance based on the time range. That is all shift time which starts between a specific time duration. Okay. So what this typically means is that, say I have a shift that is starting at 6 a.m. and ending at 10 a.m. In that case, I want them to be paid. NSA is the shift allowance code we have created, night shift allowance. Okay, let's do one thing. Because we have created a night shift allowance, I want everybody working after 11 p.m. till the next day 4 a.m. Somebody working from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., I want them to be assigned night shift allowance. That is, they get paid the 500 rupees given, right? Otherwise, so this is when, here what we are trying to do is we are trying to define the start and end time. So anybody working after 11 a.m., between 11 and 4 a.m., 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. will be paid as per this policy. And if you have multiple timings like that, so 4 a.m. is done. So if you have somebody working from 5 a.m. till 10 a.m., they also get paid, but on a different scale, in a different pay code. Then that could be defined accordingly and given here. So this is about how to assign shift code to the timings we have here. Now here we have an option: ignore employees who are assigned flexible shift for the purpose of allowance consideration. Say I am in a flexible shift and here there's a code 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. I have logged in at say 3 o'clock or something. So I've logged in at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. I will happily complete my 9 hours because I'm in a flexible shift. I can come in and go in at any time. All I have to do is just ensure that I finish my 9 hours. But in this case, if you do want to ignore people in flexible shifts to not fall under this allowance, all you have to do is just check this box. All right. Now, so this is where we have defined timings, saying 11 to 4, pay them as per NSA, 5 to 10, pay them as per FP. We also have another option. It's either this or this. What this means is that if the shift is, we have certain predefined shifts in the system, right? We have created 2 today, and otherwise there are already 2 created in the system. So if I want somebody working in webinar shift, that is 10 to 7, they should be paid as per NSA. So somebody who's working between 10 to 7. Here, all we have to keep in mind is that here we are not defining the timings explicitly like how we did earlier. Earlier, we specifically mentioned that 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. So we kind of gave timings there. But here, we have used already created shifts available in the system and assigned a pay code to it. That's all. And in a different shift, for somebody in a CS day, if they should be paid according to this. If you have multiple shifts and different pay codes, all the relevant pay codes can be added to the shifts accordingly. Got it? So we have two options here. So either go by the timings or go by already created shifts. That's the option. And here it's the same. Now here it's a ignore shift allowance calculation if the work hours completed is less than dash percent of the gross hours. So what this is that, say I have only, I did, I am working in the webinar shift. I came in at 10 o'clock on dot on time. And then because and there is pay code assigned to it, 500 rupees, the NSA assigned to it. But I have logged off at 2 p.m. only. Ideally, I'm expected to work till 7 o'clock because those are my shift timings, right? Webinar shift timings, 10 to 7 o'clock. But I've logged off at 3 o'clock only. If you have a policy where you do not want to calculate shift allowance, then you can put a restriction saying if it's say 90% of the gross hours, then only if the employee completes 90% of the defined gross hours, that is 9 hours of time, 90% of 9 hours, only then they will be considered for shift allowance calculation. Otherwise, not. Or if you're fine with it, if you do not have it, you can very well and good ignore this option. Okay. Otherwise, just select that ignore shift allowance calculation if the work hours or of employees is less than so and so hours of either gross hours or effective hours. So as we have already discussed, gross and effective hours, the difference is the break time. So if my gross hours are 9 and my break duration is 1 hour, my effective hours obviously become 8 hours, excluding my break time. So that's how it is. So just save it. Yeah, so we've also successfully created. Yeah, so as we see, to understand, if you already have shift policy and you want to understand what are the settings here, then all you have to do is just have a look at the summary. Summary will give an overview of as to what settings are defined inside the policy, and versions. So whenever any change is made, right, we can actually see track versions of it. And see, no employees are assigned to the shift policy yet. So shift allowance code. Yeah. So shift allowance assignment is not done yet, right? So to assign shift allowance policy, again, we have to similar where we have assigned shift and weekly offs, we have to switch to shift allowance assignment. Just select everybody who is relevant and then update shift. Start could be, because it's a Monday, I'm selecting that. I don't want an end time. So you can put an end time if you have it already. Otherwise, if you select shift does not have an end time, just select this and policy and then update. That's all. So all of these employees are under the shift allowance policy. Yeah. So that's pretty much about, how to add shifts, flexible, how to add weekly off, uh, predefined shift slots, and what is it. Yeah. So but if you want to understand who is in what kind of shift, you can just switch to reports. Under attendance report, we have something called shift allowance details, right? So you can try to fetch this report. So this report, in the selected rate range, this report will give the details. Yeah. So that's about it. Now I'll just stop sharing my screen for now. If you have any questions, you can just write to us and we'll try to answer them. I hope I was audible and that was clear. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ramita. Yes. So these settings are can be done by the admins. Yes. So as I mentioned during the webinar, Scheduler is an add-on. And if you want to understand the features of it and see how it works, you can drop a line to our support channel and we'll take it forward from there. Thank you, Poonam. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Magandya. Can the settings be done by any others apart from the admin? No. So typically, all the operations, like any other settings, ideally global admin or the HR manager and executive will have access, right? So yeah, admin should be able to do it. Yeah. All right, then I think that brings us to the end of the session today. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening. And we hope everybody's safe. And yeah, so see you again in another session. And if you have any requests or recommendations for another session or a different topic, you can feel free to write to us. We'll try to get that arranged. Okay. Session for performance noted. Thank you so much, Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Session on performance.